I come from Corthan Prime, a world so brutally heavy that weaker species can't survive a single minute on its surface. With 2.3 times galactic gravity, my people, the Corthini, are shaped into living war machines. 4 arms capable of bending durasteel. Chitin plating grown under the skin. Endurance carved into our bones. For centuries, the Corthini have been the backbone of the Galactic Defense Corps. Wherever the galaxy needed impossible strength, we answered. But nothing in all my training prepared me for Station Vertax 9. It hung in orbit like a blade forged from starlight. Silver towers, glowing hangars, thousands of elite cadets from every sector, all trying to prove they were the best the galaxy had ever produced. Inside, the academy vibrated with controlled chaos. Commands barked across the halls. Cadets marched in precise formations. Tactical holograms flickered on the walls, like ghost battles repeating on loop. I flexed my 4 arms, eager for challenge. Hey, I was not special. Hey, everyone believed they were unstoppable. The perfect battlefield for ambition. Trouble arrived early. A massive reptilian cadet from Sokani's major shoved past a smaller student and knocked their equipment bag across the polished deck. Tools scattered everywhere. Datapads clattered and slid under nearby benches. The bully laughed, deep, proud, cruel. My instincts surged. My muscles tightened, ready to intervene. But before I could even take a step, she acted. A human cadet. Small, quiet, precise. She stepped into the space between them like she belonged there, grabbed the handle of a multipurpose training baton, and struck with a clean, perfect motion. Crack. The reptilian bully stumbled back, hissing, clutching an arm now bent at an unnatural angle. The entire hall froze. Even instructors paused mid-sentence. The human girl simply lowered the handle. Calm. Balanced. Deadly. No fear. No hesitation. Just flawless execution. In that instant, I learned something I had never truly understood. Strength isn't always mass. Sometimes, it's timing. Sometimes, it's courage. Sometimes, it's a single, perfect strike. She glanced at me briefly, her eyes steady and sharp. You coming, she said, or are you just going to stand there? Then she walked away, as if breaking a Sicanian's arm was merely part of her warm-up routine. My pulse hammered with shock, admiration, and something else, anticipation. Vertax 9 was going to be far more challenging than I had imagined. And this human had already rewritten everything I thought I knew. This was only the beginning. The next morning began long before the first artificial sunrise cycled through the Academy's viewing panels. Vertax 9 didn't wait for anyone, not even the strongest species in the galaxy. I woke to the sharp buzz of the dorm alarms, the kind that drills directly into your skull and refuses to let you drift back into comfort. My forearms stretched instinctively, joints cracking, muscles tightening as I prepared myself for whatever torment the instructors had prepared. But my mind wasn't on the training schedule. It was on her, the human, the one who shattered a Sicanian's arm with nothing but her training handle and precision I still couldn't fully process. I replayed the moment over and over, each time trying to understand how something so small, so physically insignificant by Corthini standards, could execute a maneuver that perfect. I dressed quickly, fastening my armored training harness. The corridors outside my dorm were already filling with cadets heading toward the primary atrium, our first full day of evaluation drills. Vertax 9 believed in one thing. Pressure reveals truth. You can fake discipline. You can pretend confidence. But under pressure, your core self surfaces. As the crowd funneled toward the atrium, I scanned faces and species, wondering if she would appear. The smaller cadet from yesterday, the one whose bag had been destroyed, walked nervously beside me. When he noticed my presence, he straightened like a board. "Thank you for being there yesterday," he whispered. "I didn't do anything." He shook his head. "But you were going to. That counts." Before I could respond, A sharp whistle cut through the chatter. Hundreds of cadets snapped to attention as Instructor Vethros marched into view, a towering insectoid veteran from the Ikath clans, wearing armor etched with battle scars. "Cadets," he barked, his voice metallic and vibrating. "Today, we determine your baseline capabilities. You will be pushed. You will fail. And you will learn." Screens across the atrium lit up with training categories. Mobility trials, tactical scenarios, hand-to-hand combat, biometric stress testing, reaction drills. Then Vethros clicked his mandibles, voice dropping lower. "And for a select few, elite placement evaluation." A ripple of excitement and fear moved through the crowd. Only the most promising cadets were placed into elite tracks. Most cadets never even saw the preliminary tests. But before anticipation could settle, another figure stepped forward. Quiet, unassuming, human. She blended in so well that most cadets didn't even notice her arrival. But I did. Every instinct I possessed sharpened. She didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge anyone, simply stood at ease as if she had already fought this day 1,000 times. Her calm unnerved me in a way nothing had before. We were divided into groups. Fate, or perhaps deliberate design, placed me and the human in the same evaluation unit. The first test was mobility under heavy gravity simulation. For me, it was trivial. My homeworld's gravity made the simulator feel like a gentle breeze. But for many species, walking became staggering, running became impossible. The human stepped onto the platform beside me. I expected strain, maybe hesitation. Instead, when the simulation activated, she adapted instantly. Her steps were controlled, her breathing perfectly managed. Not effortless, no, but disciplined, trained, familiar. She had practiced for environments far harsher than standard human conditions. Next came reaction drills, where spherical drones fired stun pulses that trainees had to dodge. Cadets around us scrambled, rolled, leaped, some getting hit immediately. I dodged each pulse with the natural reflexes of a Korthini. She moved like water, smooth, predictive. Not faster than me, but more efficient. Every dodge was calculated to conserve momentum. She wasn't just reacting, she was reading the pattern. Impressive, I muttered between volleys. She didn't look at me. "You telegraph your movements." A stun pulse crackled past my shoulder. "My what?" "Your shoulders tense before you shift weight. Opponents will read you easily." Before I could process the critique, the round ended. We moved into hand-to-hand combat, and the room thickened with tension. Cadets whispered as pairings were displayed. Species from dozens of worlds stood ready, each convinced they were unmatched. Her name appeared beside mine. My pulse hitched. We entered the arena circle. She stood across from me, relaxed posture, arms at her sides, eyes unreadable. "I don't want to hurt you," I said cautiously. "You won't," she replied. The instructors signaled. She moved first, not with brute force, but with technique so refined it froze my thoughts. She didn't attack me directly. She attacked my balance. Every strike, every shift of weight, every redirection targeted my center of mass. I countered with raw power, blocks, grips, wide arc strikes. She avoided most of them, but when one blow nearly connected, she used my momentum to spin away, sliding under my arm, tapping a pressure point beneath my rib plating. Just enough to sting. Just enough to prove a point. We circled each other, breath measured, eyes locked. "You're strong," she said softly. "But strength alone isn't enough here." "Who taught you to fight like this?" I asked. Her expression didn't change. "Earth taught me. Everything else refined it." The instructor ended the round. No decisive victor, yet no doubt that she had exposed my weaknesses with surgical precision. As we stepped off the platform, she finally looked at me directly. "If you want to survive Vertax 9, she said, "you'll have to evolve." Then she walked away again. And for the first time in my life, I realized I wanted to. The training day wasn't over, but my mind had already been thrown off balance. Vertex 9 was supposed to be where I proved my superiority, where I showed the galaxy what a Kothini was capable of. Instead, I found myself replaying every move the human had made during our sparring match. The way she flowed instead of resisted. The way she redirected my strength instead of countering it. The way her eyes stayed focused, calm, and frighteningly aware. It unsettled me more than any battlefield wound ever had. The next trial took place in the cognition chamber, a dim, circular room filled with floating holoscreens and shifting platforms. The lights dimmed as we entered, leaving only sharp blue lines tracing the walls. 100 cadets, arranged in silence, each stepping into an isolation pod. In this test, Instructor Vethros announced from above, your mind will be challenged. Strategy, memory, pattern recognition, battlefield logic, and adaptability. Adaptability. My gaze drifted toward the human again. Something told me she would excel here just as she had in everything else. The pod sealed around me with a soft hiss. Darkness fell. Then dozens of holographic symbols burst to life, rapidly shifting, rearranging, dissolving, reforming. Instructions flowed through my auditory implant, but the pace was overwhelming even for my enhanced reflexes. The first sequence hit me like a mental strike. Predict patterns. Track enemy formations. Choose optimal deployment paths. Avoid simulated civilian casualties. Counter alien tactics. Every scenario blended into the next with no pause. But something went wrong. Not with the simulation. With me. Every time I thought I recognized a pattern, it changed. Every time I committed to a strategy, an unpredictable variable appeared. The pod felt tighter. My heart beat faster. My muscles tensed even though they served no purpose here. The pressure, mental, not physical, was suffocating. And beneath that pressure, a terrible realization surfaced. I relied too much on strength. Too much on physical dominance. Too much on certainty. Hey, brute force meant nothing. My pod flashed red, multiple errors. My performance was sinking. Then, through the thin pod walls, I heard faint clicks, sharp, rhythmic, controlled. The human, in the pod beside mine. Her fingers tapped in steady patterns. Her breathing remained even. She was analyzing, not reacting. Thinking, not panicking. She wasn't fighting the system. She was moving with it. I focused on her rhythm. Tap, tap, pause. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, pause, tap. Slowly, I aligned my breathing with the rhythm. I let go of the instinct to force solutions and instead let myself observe. The simulation's chaos became patterns. The symbol's movement became predictable. My responses sharpened. Red errors turned to yellow, then green. By the time the pod opened, sweat dripped down my temples, but my mind felt clearer than it had in years. Cadets stumbled out, some dizzy, some trembling. Only a few stood steady. She was one of them. She glanced sideways at me, her eyes narrowing with something like acknowledgement. Not approval, never that, but recognition. The next challenge came faster than any of us expected. A deep alarm bled across the academy. All cadets, report to Training Hangar 3. Immediately. Not a simulation alarm. A deployment alarm. Cadets stared at each other, uncertain. A murmur swept through the crowd. Already? It's day one. Is this real? No, it has to be a drill. But a drill at this level was unheard of. The hangar doors slid open and we rushed inside. Instead of a staging area, we found a battlefield, an entire holographic war zone stretching across the vast chamber. Smoke, explosions, terrain, enemy drones, all terrifyingly realistic. A towering instructor, clad in heavy armor, waited for us. "Welcome to the Adaptive Combat Gauntlet," he growled. "Whatever you think you know, forget it. This simulation reacts to you. Your choices. Your mistakes. Your strengths. Your fears." A memo rose behind me. "The gauntlet? That's for second-year cadets. Why are we doing it now?" The instructor's mandibles clicked. Because Vertax 9 accelerates excellence. If you survive this round, you survive the academy. Lines formed. Units organized. And for reasons that seemed less like coincidence and more like targeted design, the human and I were placed in the same strike team, along with 3 other cadets. Our objective appeared on the holo-display. Locate and extract lost Recon drone before hostile forces destroy signal core. Simple on paper. But as the simulation began, the battlefield erupted with enemy fire. Pulse drones swarmed from the canyon walls. Plasma bolts streaked across the smoky horizon. Our team scrambled for cover. I lifted a fallen blockade pillar with ease, using it as mobile cover for 2 smaller cadets. The human darted ahead, scanning the terrain with swift, decisive movements. Then she paused. "It's bait," she said. "What?" one cadet asked. "They are funneling us toward the canyon center." Too predictable. Before any of us could respond, an explosion rocked the ground where we would have stepped. She was right. Again. I stared at her, as dust settled around us. "How did you know?" She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes tracked enemy movement, calculating, assessing. "Because that's what I would do if I were the enemy," she finally said. "Predict where the strongest cadet tries to lead the team. Then trap them." I felt a jolt of humbling clarity. She wasn't just reacting to the battlefield. She was thinking like the battlefield. We pushed forward, following her lead, weaving through ambushes that would have destroyed unprepared teams. Her instincts were razor-sharp, her decisions instantaneous. Where I saw obstacles, she saw openings. Where I saw attack routes, she saw traps. The Recon drone glowed ahead, a faint blue pulse buried in rubble. Just as we reached it, enemy drones closed in from every direction. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Our team braced for a fight we might not win. But she stepped forward, eyes narrowing, mind already racing faster than the drones could move. "Follow my mark," she said. And for the first time since arriving at Vertax 9, I didn't question it. I obeyed. The battlefield around us crackled with hostile energy, the swarming drones closing in with mechanical shrieks that echoed across the canyon walls. Plasma bolts streaked overhead like burning comets. Dust and smoke curled through the air, turning the horizon into a shifting haze of light and shadow. The human stood at the front of our formation, still as a statue, eyes fixed on the approaching swarm. I felt my forearms tense, ready to crush anything that came near. The other cadets trembled behind us, realizing that whatever happened next would determine whether our team survived the gauntlet or was erased from the simulation entirely. She exhaled once. Calm. Precise. "On my mark," she repeated. I didn't understand her plan, but something in her voice, cold, steady, absolute, made obedience feel natural. The first wave of drones descended, their metal wings slicing the air. They fired in synchronized volleys, a deadly grid of plasma meant to overwhelm us from every direction. "Now," she snapped. We scattered, not chaotically, but in a pattern she had predicted long before the enemy fired. The drone's coordinated shots slammed into empty ground, explosions rippling outward in blinding flashes. She had read their firing sequence before it even began. Without hesitation, she sprinted toward the rubble where the Recon drone was buried. I followed, using my size as a shield, intercepting incoming fire with my armored forearms. Each blast stung like a lightning strike, but I pushed through. "Lift," she ordered. I heaved the collapsed slab of Duracrete aside in one clean motion. Beneath it, the Recon drone pulsed weakly, half-crushed but still operational. She knelt quickly, fingers dancing across its interface panel, initiating a forced extraction protocol. 30 seconds, she murmured. "Hold them." 30 seconds. Against a swarm. Impossible, even for a Corthini. But her voice steadied my pulse. For 30 seconds, I could be unbreakable. The next wave came in fast. I charged into them with all forearms raised, swatting drones like insects. Metal cracked. Sparks flew, fragments scattered across the canyon floor. My species was built for brute force combat, and now it showed. Every blow shattered a drone. Every step shook the ground. But there were too many. Dozens slipped past me, streaking toward her position. I roared a warning. She didn't look up. I know. Left side, 3 incoming. I pivoted left just in time to catch the trio in a sweeping arc of my lower arms, smashing them into the rocks. How did she know? I hadn't even seen them. More drones approached, 20, maybe more. The other cadets finally found their courage, firing stun pulses and striking down any that came too close. Still, the tide was overwhelming. Hurry, one yelled. We can't hold them. You can, she replied, her voice level, unwavering. 10 more seconds. 10 seconds. A lifetime in combat. The drones adapted, shifting tactics, weaving tighter formations, targeting our weakest team members. I barreled forward, placing myself between them and the drones. My muscles burned. Sparks rained over me. My armor cracked under concentrated fire. But I refused to fall. 5 seconds. A drone slipped under my guard, streaking straight toward her exposed back. I lunged to intercept, but she moved first. Her hand shot out behind her without looking, snatching the drone's wing mid-flight and slamming it into the ground with a precision that defied instinct. She crushed the core with one swift strike of her elbow and continued working on the wrecking drone as if nothing had happened. Extraction complete. The moment she said it, the battlefield froze. Every drone halted mid-air. Every explosion dissolved into sparks. The canyon walls shimmered and rippled out of existence. Then the simulation collapsed into darkness. Silence fell. One by one, lights flickered back on in the massive hangar. The holographic battlefield was gone, replaced by the cold steel floor and towering instructors observing from above. Most cadets around the room collapsed to their knees, panting. Others stared blankly, overwhelmed by the intensity of the gauntlet. Only a handful remained standing. She was one of them. I forced myself upright, breathing heavily but intact. The human glanced at me from the corner of her eye, not a smile, not praise, but a look that said she'd expected nothing less. Instructor Vethros descended from the command platform, his insectoid limbs clattering against the floor with sharp metallic clicks. His eyes scanned the surviving teams until finally settling on ours. Team 6, he said. Approach. We stepped forward, each of us unsure whether we were about to be commended or dissected for our failures. Vethros folded 2 of his arms behind his back, his mandibles twitching. Most teams failed within the first 3 minutes, he said. Yours survived the full cycle. Explain. The cadet beside me swallowed nervously. Another shifted from foot to foot. But the human stepped forward without hesitation. Adaptation, she said simply. We identified the enemy's behavioral patterns and adjusted our formation accordingly. Vethros tilted his head. You led the formation. Yes. And you, he said, turning to me, chose to follow. I felt the weight of the question. Korthini do not follow lightly. But I answered honestly. Yes. And why? Because she sees what others don't, I said. Including me. The room fell silent. Vethros studied her for a long, unsettling moment. Then he spoke. Cadet, state your name. She hesitated for the first time since I'd met her. Arya Vale. Vethros tapped a device on his wrist. A symbol appeared on the display above us, a silver insignia surrounded by 9 stars. The mark of the elite Vanguard program. Gasps echoed across the hangar. Vethros nodded slowly. Cadet Arya Vale. Effective immediately, you are promoted to Vanguard trainee. Then he looked at me. And you, Korthini, you will accompany her. My breath caught. Not as her protector, not as her superior, not even as her equal, but as her partner. Before I could respond, Arya glanced at me with eyes that finally showed something new. Respect. We start tomorrow, she said quietly. And for the first time since arriving at Vertax 9, I felt a new kind of strength awakening inside me. Not born from muscle, not carved by gravity, but forged through challenge. forged through her.